How's it going, everyone? Today we're going to take a look at inversion with conditional sentences, also called reduced conditionals. To make the most of this video, it will help to already know what conditionals are and why we use them. I'm David and this is the English channel. This video is part of a series I've been doing on inversion and how it's used in English. So you might be asking yourself, well, I already know how to make conditional sentences. Why would I need to know how to make inverted conditionals? And the simple answer is, they are more formal. If you need to write or speak in a serious tone, say for an academic paper or to an audience that you don't know, you may feel it's better to maintain a kind of distance between you and the reader or listener. And as with most forms of inversion, if you manage to throw them into your English exams, the examiners will love you. So, how do we invert conditional sentences? So firstly, it's important to bear in mind that when we talk about inverting conditionals, we are only talking about inverting the if clause. The main clause stays the same. Secondly, they all follow a basic subject auxiliary form of inversion. In negative sentences, we place a not before the main verb. Now let's look at each conditional and how to invert them. So I'm going to do the zero and first conditionals together because in their grammar forms, the difference is only found in the main clause. The zero and first conditionals are often the first conditionals that we teach to students, but funnily enough, they are actually the trickiest to invert. This is because in their normal form, we don't use an auxiliary verb, but we need to use an auxiliary verb when we invert it. To understand the inverted form, we need to know a more formal version of the regular sentence. This is created by adding the word should before the main verb. If you should need me, I will be able to answer any questions you have. What this should does is indicate the unlikely nature of this event. So to use the example I've just given, it's like saying, I have given you lots of information and I don't think you will have any questions, but if you do have any questions, I will be able to answer them. So to create the inversion of these conditionals, we start with the word should, then we have the subject, then we have a present simple verb. Should you have any questions, I will be able to answer them. Should water reach 100 degrees, it boils. This inversion is very formal, and some people say you find it mostly in writing, but in my experience, I have also found it said by people providing services in high-end establishments like posh hotels or fancy restaurants. Although in these situations, it's also highly likely that the people have been trained to use this expression, rather than the phrase being said spontaneously as part of the person's normal idiolect. Also, I found it in a computer game.
Should you need something, I will be happy to oblige.
So let's look at inverting the second conditional. There are two ways we can invert the second conditional. The first way is when the if clause uses a be verb, the subjunctive were. Like, if I were a rich man, I'd buy an island. To invert this sentence, we remove if and place the be verb, were, at the start of the sentence. We then follow it with the subject and then the object. Were I a rich man, I would buy an island. We use another way of inverting the second conditional if the if clause doesn't use a be verb. Here, we still use were to start the if clause and still followed by its subject, but only this time we follow this up with a to infinitive verb and then the object if it has one. Were I to become a politician, I would probably accept donations from questionable oligarchs. So there's a few things about this form of inversion that are good to know. Firstly, I rarely hear the phrase, if I were you, said as an inverted sentence, probably because it's actually an idiomatic expression. In my research, I found that it was used in a book in 1832. So if you are writing in an archaic register, it might make sense. But apart from that, I would just avoid it. The same goes for saying, were I to be you, which I've come across in some textbooks as saying it's okay. This does sound very strange. It could make sense in the context of assigning roles in a play, like, were I to be you instead of Mr. Brown, I believe I would be more convincing. So it's not impossible to use in the right context, but this is a very particular context. So on to the third conditional. Like the form of the second conditional, we use the auxiliary verb that's found in its normal sentence and place that at the start of the if clause. So with the third conditional, this would be the auxiliary verb had. We then follow this with the subject and then the past participle verb. So if I had the statement, if I had known, I would have told you, the inverted form would be, had I known, I would have told you. Of all the inverted conditionals, I would say that this is probably the most straightforward. This is because unlike inverting the zero and first conditionals, we don't need to use an auxiliary verb, which we don't often find in the normal sentence. And unlike inverting the second conditional, there is only one way to do it. And another thing, I think this kind of inversion is actually a little more widely said than the second conditional. I just want to talk briefly about the phrase, if it weren't for. So this phrase gets used a lot when speaking. It looks like the if clause for a second conditional sentence, but it can also be used with the third conditional. It basically means without. It's often used to show gratitude or bitterness to someone or something, depending on the result in the main clause. If it weren't for you, I would never have arrived on time. Or,
and I would have succeeded too if it weren't for you meddling schoolmates.
I'm mentioning this because it's fairly common to hear it in an inverted form too, and it follows the general pattern of the second conditional if clause. Were it not for, plus an object. Were it not for you, I would never have arrived on time. Were it not for COVID, life would be a lot better. If you found this video interesting, then subscribe to my channel to get more videos on the English language and how it works. Okay, so quiz time. Have a go at inverting these bad boys. You've got 30 seconds and the answers will be at the end of the video. Are you ready? Go! Okay, so that's all for today. If you've got any questions, please leave a comment. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next time.